yoga lovers, welcome to Talk Yoga to Me. We're thrilled to have you with us as we dive into all things yoga. Whether you're on the mat, in your car, or just relaxing at home, we're here to chat about poses, philosophy, teaching tips, and so much more. So go ahead, roll out your mat, take a deep breath, and let's get started. Talk yoga to me, Jimmy.
Let's do it, yeah. So this week we're going to be talking about cultivating a beginner's mindset, trying something new, going into something where you're not the expert. Maybe for some of us, yoga, we are the quote-unquote expert, so going into a different practice. Maybe for you that's like learning how to kayak or paddleboard or rock climb, whatever it may be.
Cooking.
Yeah, cooking. Dude,
Yeah.
I need that. I need to be a student of cooking classes.
Same. For
sure. And it can apply, it kind of ties back into the fresh eyes, but it kind of forces you to have fresh eyes because it's something new to you. And being a student can mean so many different things for different people. It could just mean, for in the scope of yoga, trying a class that you haven't tried before or a teacher that you've not tried. But recognizing like we know things, but there's also so much we don't.
Yeah.
So trying to step into the student seat in whatever avenue you're wanting to learn something more about.
And that can be really challenging because once we feel like we are, for lack of a better word, expert or knowledgeable or a teacher in a situation, it can be really hard to step back into the seat of a student because it feels like we're moving backwards, but it's really that like one step back, two steps forward type concept. So it can be really challenging to go from I only teach and I only know to I actually don't know everything, so let me reel it in and learn something new, learn something fresh. And a lot of times, I think we've talked about this in previous episodes or maybe just conversations that we've had, but sometimes the things that we learn, read, and experience are a timing thing. Where we read something and we're like, okay, cool, move on. And we revisit it a few months later. We're in a different mindset, a different headspace. We've changed since then. And we take it in a whole new way. And then we set it down. We come back to it again 6 months later and we're like, wow, life-changing.
Yeah, that's so true. I really enjoy rereading books, more nonfiction books, but even fiction books, they're fun to reread. But yeah, you're so right, because your experience has changed from the last time you read it or the last time you listened to that podcast, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
So you're seeing it with new experience that then applies in a different way and kind of hits different.
Absolutely. And a lot of times when you are moving into the seat of a student and relearning or revisiting things, you find yourself in new environments that are maybe outside of your comfort zone, which can be off-putting if you're not really into change and if you're not really into experiencing life outside of your comfort bubble. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, and I feel like new environments too can force you to be present. Like whether it's like, okay, I feel more anxious than usual, or like my breath is getting a little bit more rapid, but also it can be like when you're struggling to come into the present, have fresh eyes, you could go explore a neighborhood in your local area that you've never been to before. You know, just park the car at a park and just start walking around, or go to a new local business that you haven't gotten to experience. And just being in a new environment, to me, can slow you down, bring you back into the present moment, and be more aware of new things that, you know, being in stale environments or places you go all the time, you get carved into your little habits.
You do. You know, one thing or example I like to try to remind myself of daily is where we live. We are living in a tiny beach town on the Gulf Coast, and people spend their whole lives trying to get here or get to vacation here once 4 or 5 days and they'll never be back type thing. And they come here and they're just in awe and wonder when they look at the Gulf and how beautiful it is. and how soft and white our sand is and things like that. And we live here, and it's so easy to forget that we literally live in this little slice of paradise, that sometimes we're so stuck in our carved out routine that we forget to like stop and stare at the ocean type thing. Like, we're literally in paradise somewhere beautiful, and you have to kind of, even just as simple as going to the beach, it's like you have to go there with fresh eyes occasionally to bring yourself back to like see the awe and the wonder. And that's the same thing with being a student. You have to step out of the expert seat so that you can look at new information with awe and wonder and be like, wow, this is amazing. And I think all of that comes from cultivating that beginner's mindset, whether it is through learning your environment and things like that. But we can also practice that by going somewhere new ourselves. Yeah, absolutely.
And I love that too, of wherever you are, you can so quickly, like in your neighborhood or in your town, underappreciate the things that are just readily available to you. Like in the mountains, if it's like snow and skiing, whatever, but for us, it's the beach, and which is amazing.
Yeah.
But slowing down and tuning back into our senses, you know, what does the sand feel like beneath my toes? You know, what am I hearing? Well, look at the crazy reflection of the sun over the waves, you know?
Yeah, and just making the time to do things like that. Like, how often have I personally been like, oh, I used to go to the beach every single day. I was on the sand at least once per day, every day for a long time. Now I'm like, oh, it's been 2 weeks since I've made it to the beach to watch the sunset or something simple like that. And I really have to make sure that I take the time to go back to it. And then to your point, when we travel to places like the mountains or cities, we're just like, wow, beautiful. And I think that that idea of being in the new environment really helps to kind of put this like idea of being a beginner into perspective. Yeah?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, and it can be hard to try new things. Like, it can be challenging to know that you're going into a place that's like new to you and that's intimidating, and we're not going to be great at it first, especially if it's like a hobby or a skill. So I feel like that leads into this idea of like, just don't be afraid to suck, you know? Sad face.
I think that that's so important, because also new environments, we're talking about going places, but new environments can be trying a new yoga studio. It can be trying a gym to achieve your health and activity goals. Like, you know what I mean? It can be trying so many new things. One of the things I really want to get into, and I just haven't yet, is I really want to try jujitsu. But I'm actually really afraid to suck at it. And I'm kind of scared to be a beginner, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I have to remind myself to step into that beginner's mindset, because you literally have to let go of that fear of sucking. Like, anytime that you want to be good at something new, you have to be willing to be bad at it first.
Yeah.
Have you experienced that with anything, or do you have anything that's holding you back because you're afraid to suck at it?
Yeah, I mean, I think that can be such a hurdle of, like, I'm trying to learn to run.
Yeah.
Jog. I should be less ambitious. Jog. And it's really hard to do something, because you're like, specifically with jogging, it's like physically so different from anything else I usually do in my day to day. And on top of it just being exhausting and difficult, it can be easy to fall into like this negative pattern in your head where you're talking down to yourself, and that's just going to make it harder. Like, we're literally trying something we've never done, or for me haven't done in like 15 years, so it's like you're gonna suck at it, you know, and it's okay. Like, that's the whole process. And being able to kind of transfer anxiety and switch it into excitement. So like, my physiology is, my heart is beating, like I feel like I'm gonna break into a sweat, my face is flushing, but am I anxious, or is this something that just excites me and I need to follow that because it's getting my blood pumping and it's something that I am interested in? And if I wasn't, having all of these like physical things going on, then I wouldn't want to do it. It'd be like I'd just be laying down and sleeping around, jogging or whatever, jujitsu. Which, good for you.
I really want to try it. I'm just scared.
That's really scary. I'm gonna add on to it. That's really scary. Yeah.
I'll be in touch. I'll let you know how it goes if I ever make it in the doors. But you know what? Maybe this is kind of like my motivation to just go ahead and step out and try it. I love that you talked about running too, because I recently started trying to run 2024 when I was mentioning kind of getting healthy and things like that. And it's hard. It's exhausting, and I don't want anybody to see me do it. And I also can't, when I first started running, no music. I couldn't have headphones on. I couldn't be with anybody. I had to be focused because I had those feelings of I feel really anxious about this. And I would just be in my head kind of repeating it's okay. It's okay. You got this. Keep going. You got this. Keep going. And it's that idea of what are we afraid of? What are we anxious about? People seeing us, people judging us. And I was them judging me isn't going to make me faster, so let me just keep them out of my head. And then I noticed the physiology of my heart racing while I was out running. And so once I finally started listening to music, it was calm music. I don't work out to anything high intensity music. I'm no, keep it chill. I was my heart's already beating fast enough. Let's keep my mind chill.
That's so interesting.
I'm kind of crazy about it. I was working out in my garage, and Colin would be can I play music? And I was he'd be can I turn on the fan? It's really hot in here. It's August in Florida. Oh. And I was no, fan is too loud. Makes me anxious.
Yeah. Maybe
that's a me thing. We'll talk about that some other time.
But I love that you had a mantra through this kind of anxiety-inducing new environment, trying something new, running, and you're I'm okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's kind of part of being a beginner, and I had to not be afraid to suck. I was doing interval running, and so I did this really funny thing because I'm not a runner. I don't like running. Nothing about running excites me. I'm not into it. So I would walk for 50 seconds and run for 10 seconds. And I would just repeat this, and I was man, the same person who saw me start running is going to see me stop running. And I was what am I embarrassed about? Literally nothing. They're not running, they're in their car.
Yeah. So, and in 10 seconds, they're already gone.
And then they're gone, and it's fine. So that was also a thing, and I was they don't know my story, they don't know what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, and let go of the external and focus on the fact that I'm starting something new. I'm not afraid to suck at it, and if I keep not being afraid to suck, eventually I'm going to be better.
Yeah.
Eventually I might even be good at it. We'll see. Running is still not my favorite thing, and it's been too cold to run here, so...
Yeah, it's knives in your throat and your lungs when you're trying to... How do people in cold weather places run?
I don't know. It's not... I had to stop. My sister gifted me a walking pad so I can walk in my house because it's too cold for me to run outside. Cold being under 65 degrees, which is what it's been the past few weeks. So, but I mean, all of these things to say, don't be afraid to suck. You have to equally not be afraid to start, right? You have to get past the idea that after you start, you might suck, but you have to also not be afraid to start. And this is something that I think is one of the biggest hurdles. Also, new year, new intentions, New Year's resolutions, we think we have to start on the 1st. We think we have to start on a Monday. We think we have to start
tomorrow.
At the beginning of the month. Yeah, there's so many little things where we're constantly pushing our start date out until eventually, the goals, why was that even a goal? I thought about it this long ago. Me and jiu-jitsu. I wanted to try that 3 years ago, and I've just been yeah, later. And that's something that we all have to overcome, and I think that's from not just or more specifically, I should say, like even teaching your first yoga class as a teacher. Once you finish YTT and it's time to do your first class, the longer you put it off, the harder and scarier it gets to be, and the more afraid you are to start, and the more afraid you are to suck, which you just rip that Band-Aid off.
Yeah, there's like this thing about the gap between, okay, you decide you want to do something, and then if you don't get up and do it right then, that time in between is when the doubt comes in. And with teaching, it's harder because there's gonna be time. You know, you can't just like, okay, I'm ready to teach and do it right then on the sidewalk. I mean, I guess you could, but it might not be any students. But that time, knowing that the more time that you have to overthink it, the more time that you allow the anxiety to build is going to make it less and less likely that you're going to start something new. And especially with yoga teacher trainings.
Yeah.
Because when it's fresh on your mind, you've got that momentum. You can ride that wave, do the community class or whatever it may be, go teach in the park with your friends, and rip the Band-Aid. Yeah.
Rip the Band-Aid off. Like, it's so worth it.
Because even if you wind up long term, you're like, oh, like, you know, I taught a couple classes. I don't really want to teach. That's great. That's fine. Like, that's good. You've learned so much for your own practice.
Yeah. And a lot of times you're learning, once you start teaching, you're learning throughout each and every class that you teach. So if you only do one and give up, you're never going to make it to where you would be if you just kept going, you know?
Yeah.
I know I experienced that a lot when I first started teaching, where I was like, oh, that wasn't my best. That wasn't great. But then you always have people who are like, that was great, we loved it.
Yeah, because the internal perspective is so different from the external of people are just showing up to enjoy class, and you're criticizing yourself on every little hesitation, every little word that you should have said this instead of that, or, oh, I should have changed this sequence. The students aren't experiencing it in that way.
Yeah.
They're experiencing it as like, oh, I'm having this great time in a yoga class, just getting to like follow along and enjoy my time.
Yeah.
But you're right. You can't know if you're gonna like it unless you're doing it multiple times, because you're still gonna have that afraid to suck mentality.
Yeah.
For the first couple months.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the same thing on not the teacher side, but the student side. Like, we talked about being afraid to suck or a new environment with like running. I still have not made it to jujitsu. Anyways, but we're gonna have students in our class who are afraid to show up to yoga for the first time.
Yeah.
So we're also going to be the person, and I feel like showing up to yoga for the first time and being afraid to start and being afraid to suck at it is almost more intimidating, because you're in a room with people that's going to be a little bit harder to get out of for at least 60 minutes, right? Like, it's a pretty close and personal practice, but you're also surrounded by people who can openly see you, and you think everyone's looking at you, but we're all just trying to not fall over.
Yeah.
And so I think welcoming people in as a teacher and letting them know it's okay to start, letting them know that like there's no such thing as being good at yoga. We just do yoga, right?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I cut you
off.
off.
No, you're good. I think it's, I kind of transitioned in my head to something else, but I'll get back to inviting people or making people feel welcome when it may be their first time. On Mind Body, it usually tells you if it is their first time, so you're able to kind of go out of your way to make them feel comfortable, informing them about the environment, where the bathroom is, like what the protocol is, like we leave our shoes here, you know, the door will be locked, whatever it may be, so that person, some of those questions of anxiety start to get answered.
Yeah.
And they can feel more at ease.
Yeah. And even before that, like just being really welcoming to people. Hi, hello, I don't recognize you. No, you don't say that, but like you realize somebody's walked in that you don't recognize, and it's immediately, hi, hello, are you here for class? Did you sign up online? What's your name? Welcome. We're so excited that you're here. All great ways to help to ease other people's kind of fear of starting or fear of sucking, right? Which is kind of one of our I don't want to say responsibilities, but one of the things that we are able to do as teachers, even if it's only a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, one story that I have of like a personal experience of being a student to something new and having like the story behind it in my head that was preventing me from kind of doing what I wanted to do. I my sister wanted me to join her in like a swerk class. It's a sweat and twerk. It's like hip hop, athletic. It's like the most athletic.
I think you invited me to that a long time ago.
I did. I was all about it. And the teacher, she's great, but she kind of took a pause on it. So we'll go. We'll go. But
I'll be afraid, but it's okay.
I was so afraid. Here we go. Real backstory, personal, but like being a gay kid in the South, you were, even just a man, like a guy, you were taught like these things are feminine and you don't do them. Like dancing was not allowed. But I was always interested in music and dancing and just kind of naturally enjoyed it and was good at it. And so that was always weighing on me and preventing me from like doing dance classes. The only time I could do it was like with some drinks and out at a club where everyone's doing it, so it's fine. And the liquid courage is helping. But to go into like completely sober into a class with like a new environment with all these preconceived ideas of what it is to be a guy and like what I'm allowed and not to do, even though I've processed so many of these things, it was like the pressure cooker of all of those past stories I've told myself in one place. And I got through like, I think 10 or 20 minutes of the first class and had to walk out because I was like, I couldn't keep up. It was also like a challenging class. That was part of it. But like mentally, all of a sudden, like the anxiety just got to the point where like I couldn't get it to come down. And I was like missing the beats and everything. And I was like, I feel so like I was trying to teleport myself out of there, like dissociate. And I was like, okay, come back. Like, what do I need right now? And I'm like, I need to just go. Like, I can't do this right now. But I like processed it that night, like all the past stories, tried to let some of it go. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna go back. Like I'm not, this is something I wanna do. It is anxiety, but it's also excitement. And I want to transfer that into excitement and enjoy this thing that I know I'm gonna love once I just get a bit more used to it. And so I did go back. And I went back, I think, 2 or 3 more times. And like that's the journey of change that we can experience. And letting go of this story for me was big at that time. But also just the general anxiety of I'm gonna suck at it because I'm new to it.
Yeah.
All these other people have come every week, so they know the dances, you know, like.
But they also were all new to it one time. That's such a great example. And I really love like the thought process of like changing anxiety into excitement because there's a very fine line between those two things.
Yeah.
Where a lot of things that we're excited about are a little anxiety inducing, and a lot of things that we're anxious about are pretty exciting. So I really love that story and example and how you overcame that and experienced that in your life. That's amazing. But I think that, I mean, it all comes down to just cultivating that beginner's mindset over and over and over again. We're beginners in our lives more than once. And that's important to remember, and it's okay to suck. What are our key takeaways for this one?
Yeah, I think trying to tune into the present moment, seeing your situation, your neighborhood, your practice with fresh eyes, and being a student to life, being a student to let go of what you think you know and allow someone else to teach you. And that can go into maybe going into a new studio to learn from someone else, going into a teacher's class that you've never taken before, or anything that is new to you hobby-wise.
Yeah, that's amazing. So if you have any examples of what it has been like for you, an experience you want to share of cultivating a beginner's mindset, send us a message, an email, or comment on this video. Again, we love hearing from you. We love the ways that we've all experienced life a little bit differently, and we just want to hear from you about what obstacles you've overcome or experiences you've had with becoming a beginner again. So until next time. Bye.